Admirers say his contributions are extraordinary. Critics claim the world is worse off because of him. Whichever opinion you support, a lot speaks for Rupert Murdoch being the most powerful person in news across the English-speaking world. Thanks to his empire of aggressive tabloid newspapers, story dailies and big-hitting TV networks. Now, at age 92, he's stepping down.
The news reverberated throughout the industry and beyond. Rupert Murdoch is stepping down as the head of News Corp, the media colossus he created almost from scratch. Murdoch, seen here with his sons Lachlan and James, is one of the great media moguls of his time. From humble beginnings in his native Australia, he built a global media empire that at one stage spanned newspapers, TV, movies and publishing. But Murdoch has always been a controversial figure. He never shied away from using his muscle to influence politics, notably helping Donald Trump become president with his right-wing cable network, Fox News.
He's built a vast global media empire, and no doubt the business pages will give him credit for that. But he has done enormous damage to the democratic world, and in particular to the United States. The angertainment ecosystem that Fox News, above all, has created in the US has left America angrier and more divided than it's been at any time since the Civil War.
Murdoch first grew his business and his influence by acquiring a range of newspapers, many of which used questionable methods to break stories. He made a splash in the UK by buying the best-selling News of the World tabloid, a paper he later sold after a phone hacking scandal. The decline of print media has diminished his sway.
He certainly exercised his influence at the heyday of newspapers, but whether or not that influence really persists to this day, I think it's been heavily diluted by the decline of newspapers and also, obviously, in particular among young people.
Murdoch settled a succession fight by handing power to his son Lachlan, seen here on the right. It is now up to him to lead News Corp into the future.
Joining me now is Alice Enders, Head of Research at Enders Analysis. Welcome to DW, Alice. How would you describe Rupert Murdoch's business legacy?
Well, he has had a really huge legacy in terms both of the UK and the US. Here in the UK, he launched Sky, a satellite pay TV operator, which remains a very established business. Unfortunately, he was unable to gain full control of Sky, and it was sold to Comcast for about $40 billion in the end. But that was also quite a successful exit for him and for the family. He's also incredibly well known for having established the Fox network in the US, and in particular Fox News Channel, which is, of course, a very opinionated right-wing channel in the US, which has had a very important impact in terms of molding audience views and in terms of assisting, in particular, Mr. Trump in gaining the election in 2016.
Yeah. So how would you describe this influence? How would you describe this influence of Murdoch's media network? Is that one in a kind?
It is one of a kind in the sense that he is an old-fashioned news proprietor, in the sense that he believes that his newspapers and his broadcasting channel in the US should be opinionated and pursue an editorial line. And he is, if you like, partial to certain points of view, and he has also, as a result, exercised political influence in a way that very few media proprietors have done so, both in the UK and in the US.
Indeed, Rupert Murdoch has had a decades-long singular influence over media and politics. Alice, what was it about him that allowed him to expand his influence so rapidly across the globe?
Well, it's his media assets that give him that sort of influence. And so, as I say, certainly in the UK, the newspapers here take very strong editorial positions around elections. And although their influence has dramatically declined, since he's very famous for having, quote unquote, switched sides in the 1997 election and backed New Labour, Tony Blair's New Labour, he is typically viewed as a conservative. So he's obviously well known to be a backer of conservative policies, low taxes, etc. But I think in terms of the global environment, his influence is better known in the US, and in particular was highlighted by the Dominion voting systems case, which, Fox Corp settled for about $787.5 million. And in which there was obviously a question, I think, of journalistic integrity in the sense that Mr. Murdoch did not believe the election had been stolen, but his presenters were propagating that view on the Fox News channel. Yeah. So, certainly that is viewed as being something of a negative, I'd say, in terms of his commitment to journalistic integrity.
Alice, how would you say that Rupert Murdoch and his media companies and his newspapers, because he stems from the newspaper business, obviously, how have they adapted to the digital media environment? After all, many news brands did not survive the digital onslaught.
So the Sun here in the UK, so he has the Sun and the Times and the Sunday Times, and these are two very different businesses. The Times and the Sunday Times is now a subscription-driven business in terms of digital presence. The Sun is actually the kind of one of the top or the top advertising supported website in the UK with about 33 million monthly visitors. So it has very substantial reach. And here I must say, we have had, partly because the UK is a very internet friendly place, but, the print to digital transition has been, I think, quicker than in other places in Europe. But the publishers, it's really go digital or perish. And there are very few titles here that have sat on their hands and waited for something to happen. So he, and let's not forget News Corp, the CEO is Robert Thompson. And he has been very sanguine, very pragmatic about the transition to digital and to, again, deploying a variety of different new revenue models in order to ensure the survival of the journalism.
Now, around 30 years ago, Rupert Murdoch first publicly talked about a successor who turned out in the end to be his son, Lachlan. How was he chosen?
Well, Lachlan Murdoch and Rupert Murdoch have very similar viewpoints. So I think that's been an important criterion. And they have been working together in tandem, both at News Corp and at Fox Corp for a number of years, since 2015. For example, Rupert and Lachlan Murdoch have been co-chair people of News Corp, while they've been chair and CEO, respectively, of Fox. So they've had a long time to work together on these companies and to be in sync. And so I think, Mr. Murdoch has two sons, Lachlan and James, and then and there was some view that maybe perhaps James Murdoch might play a role in the succession of the businesses. But I think it's important to realize that Mr. Murdoch retains the full control of the family's shareholdings in these companies via the Murdoch Family Trust. And he himself has said that he's going to be chairman emeritus, which involves a change in the title on his door, the door of his office, and that he will remain very engaged with these businesses. So we don't really see the succession as being as dramatic as some people might see, because, of course, he is, he's consumed by the news and by his media properties and their longevity.
Alice, finally, critics of Rupert Murdoch say the world is worse off because of him, because of Rupert Murdoch, because Fox News can be seen as a destructive force in American democracy and public life. How do you see that?
Well, I can understand very well how people might be critical of him. Here in the UK, for example, they have been very critical of phone hacking, for example, that is also problematic. And so I would say that his reputation is mixed, but at the same time, he has shown a really tremendous commitment to journalism. And so there's pluses and minuses. For example, he's a great backer of investigative journalism at the Times and the Sunday Times or the Wall Street Journal. So I think you have to sort of balance off his reputation, in terms of Fox and Fox News Channel, bearing in mind that, as I say, he didn't really share the views of the presenters at Fox in relation to the election. We see him, to be honest, in our company, we see him in a favorable light because he has been so committed to, for example, supporting journalism rather than trying to make these businesses really commercial.
Right.
So we think, on the whole, he's had a beneficial influence in terms of the availability of news and its depth and its purpose, particularly at the newspapers.
Alice Enders, media analyst. Alice, thank you for your thoughts.
You're welcome.